We do have an audience question. Chris, why do you think the protests have been quieter in Sydney than Melbourne? Is it different policing tactics?
First and foremost, yes, that's the single biggest factor. You shut down the taxis, shut down the car parks, shut down the trains, roadblock everything. You're going to be filtering out 80% of the protesters before they even get there. Process them one by one, detaining them, finding them, sending them home. It's done. If you let them group into a group of 1,000, there's no way to grab each one away from that group is going to end up in a highly violent, highly volatile situation, and you end up with a Melbourne tradie window smashing event for each one you want to get away. But processed one by one, it's trouble free. So that's the single biggest factor. Second, we don't really have as big of a protest culture here as Melbourne. Every time I've been down in Melbourne, I've been on a tram on a Saturday. Oh, everyone off the tram, it's time for a protest. It doesn't matter what the cause is, generally social left protests, but there's so many protests that happen there. Thirdly, our housing prices are far more expensive. So there's a very different culture when it comes to the impacts of risking your protests, your life for protests like this. It's just a different set of approach there. So, but yeah, first and foremost, different approach to policing. And in a good way too, I'll say, we haven't been mass deploying pepper spray. We have not been seeing the mass deployment of hard gear like in Melbourne. We haven't been seeing the indiscriminate violence. I'm happy to describe it that way. I know that's not objective to say. The indiscriminate violence we've been seeing in Melbourne. By comparison, if you need to arrest someone in Sydney, Public Order Rider has been going one-on-one with hands, grabbing people with hands. They haven't been using batons. They haven't been using rubber bullets. They haven't been using sprays. It's been one-on-one. There's just something more human and humane about grabbing someone to arrest them than shooting them in the back with a rubber bullet.
I don't know about you, but some of the clips that I saw, it honestly made me think of The Dark Knight Rises. It was that dystopian.
I'm
I don't know if you've got a comment for that, but you've got like an armored car. You've got police in file, and they're firing on people who are unarmed.
we go back
People
to
need to.
it's a bigger question about how should we police discontent. Clearly protest is illegal. Any type of public gathering is illegal. But once that is decided that gathering is legal, okay, what do we do about it? How do we then approach it? Do we, as happens in Victoria Park, divide a group of 200 people into a group of 100 each, and then into 50, and then into 25? Okay, that's one option. Start dividing the group one by one. What happens in Melbourne in terms of tactics is they'll just smack a blockade on one end of the street and a blockade on the other end of the street and close it down and kettle them for hours on end. What are you achieving? Tactics, once you've decided that it is illegal, and there's a whole debate about whether protests should be illegal or not. That's not the point. Tactics change everything. Rather than facing officers in hard gear, you have people in loose clothes using hands, not batons, not tools. And that's the change of perception. Why you didn't get the Dark Knight Rising feel in Sydney was because, you would have felt a mass police vibe, but something about armor and something about tools used changes everything.
I think I take a different approach as to why Sydney's protests aren't going ahead. Part of it is I don't know if you've copped this much, Chris, but the harassment from police. Sorry guys, I'm having a punch up with my audio. The harassment by the police to members of the media and anyone who they suspect are organisers is a thing. You chop off the head of the snake. It is somewhat effective. And unfortunately, I've been lumped in with my as an organizer for some reason of the July 24th protest. But there's so many different things as to why Sydney's not a big protest place. Part of it is to do with the culture of Sydney, as Chris was saying. But the other part of it is, Sydney is fighting back in different ways. One of which is we've got lawfare. So we've got a lot of cases coming up this week. On the 30th, we've got GNB solicitors, we've got AFL solicitors, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I think on the 30th as well, we've also got John Larder's case, who's representing, the interest of all these paramedics. And I think that's also this week. And on top of that, we've got a lot of, as you guys probably know, in the Liberal Party, a lot of internal turmoil going on in the Liberal Party with the branches, and a lot of discontent people with the Premier. And those are avenues that, you know, people can outlet their anger at the Premier and the state of affairs. And so in New South Wales, it's mainly the Conservatives out here doing this stuff, whereas down in Victoria, you know, they do have a protest culture, but they do also have a better grasp of how to organize protests. The protesters down there are a lot more, it doesn't take a genius to see this, they're a lot more organized. You know, the fact that they've picked up on things that have been used in the Hong Kong protests, like using umbrellas, it's a no-brainer. These are simple things New South Wales, you know, protests haven't picked up on. The concept of releasing the location of your protest an hour before the protest, it's genius. I mean, I don't know why, you know, to date, every single protest in New South Wales hasn't utilized, you know, that strategy. And this is how you know I'm not a protest organizer, because if I was, we wouldn't be making stupid mistakes like that. You know, and so I mean it when I say I'm not a protest organizer, but I pick up on these things. And the problem is, if you fail too many times as organizing a successful protest, because we've only really had one successful protest, one or two, and that was the 24th of July. Now, the problem is there's a morale game also happening at the same time. Not everyone's going to show up to a protest if they know there are avenues like the lawsuits and the internal stuff going on in the Liberal Party and ICAC. No one's going to turn up to a protest. Why should they? They've got other things going on. Also, it's high risk. Everyone they're hearing about is getting smashed by the police. You know, I've been visited by the police 7 times at my own home residence. It's not fun. Imagine going out and grabbing a coffee and getting a call from your family members saying, come home, the police are here. They're asking for where you are. And then when you get home, you've got to show them receipts that you were actually getting a coffee. They look at your bank transactions. I'm not kidding. I had to show them that. This is the sort of thing that I'm talking about. And you know, a lot of people are shocked that these scenes in Victoria and sometimes New South Wales that were, you know, this is something out of, you know, the Dark Knight Rises movies, you know, Gotham burning to the ground and this revolution sort of happening. Well, you know, this was all foreseeable. This was all foreseeable, and it's very frustrating. And I don't mean in a conspiratorial sense. There was legislation that we could see. There was, if you look overseas, you can see the sort of way other countries are going. Anyone that's shocked by this hasn't really been paying attention. They must have really been focusing on what's going on in front of them.